How did this Iowa football team win 10 games? Trent and Biz with you here on today's Locked On Podcast. We break it down, and do the Hawkeyes have any hope against the Wolverines? We break it down. Locked On Hawkeyes.
You are Locked On Hawkeyes, your daily podcast on the Iowa Hawkeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, welcome in. I'm Trent Condon, that's Biz, and this is the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. We're available wherever you find podcasts, and you can also find us on YouTube. While you're there, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Helps us get in front of more Hawkeye fans. Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnCollege and use code LockedOnCollege for a first deposit match up to $100. Daily fantasy sports made easy. Biz, good to see you again. Unfortunately, we'll not be seeing you in Indianapolis due to calls, as Coach Bizgard will be manning the sidelines across Central Iowa over the weekend. I'll make sure to cheer extra hard and have a couple of beers beforehand for you.
Yeah, it'd be the ultimate kick in the gut to end the season. That the one time I don't go chasing the Hawks around expecting a miracle, they actually pull the miracle off. But I'd be happy to be wrong, but I figured I'd save the money this year because it's awesome that we're going to Indy. As we'll talk about, Trent, the odds of us winning in Indy, not good.
No, we'll get into that certainly here. Any hope at all against the Wolverines, and it is a tall task. But before that, it's celebrating 10 wins with this team. And coming into the season, I think you were with me, Biz. The expectations were very high. My Fan Duel account certainly has paid out, as I already got my Big Ten West Championship tickets that have been paid. So I put my money behind my mouth and invested in the Hawkeyes this year. I thought they were going to be a good team, and they have been. But if you would have said before the season, you're going to lose your quarterback, you're going to lose your two all Big Ten tight ends, you're going to lose Cooper DeJean for the final couple of games of the season, the injuries that piled up, coupled with more futility offensively, there's no way this team is winning 10 games, and yet here they are at 10-2 and a booth review away from being 11-1.
Yeah, Trent, I mean, I don't tweet much, but usually my tweets consist of Hawks Day today, and that's about it. But after the win on Saturday, I tweeted out, we're never going to see a season like this ever again. I mean, I think you can make a clear argument that this was the craziest season of Iowa football ever. I mean, go back to the very beginning. Before the season even starts, you got the ridiculous gambling saga that was unique to only the Iowa schools. And then you've got the completely idiotic 25-point per game contract fiasco, which again was unique to only Gary Barta and the idiocy of his going out on a high note as an athletic director with the stupidest thing of all time. And then you get into the season, like you said, you lose your best four players. You have the fair catch BS. You've got the in-season firing of the head coach's son. And somehow this team found a way to keep it all together. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, you look back at it, I'm not sure you could script, like a Hollywood script, you couldn't script a more ridiculous ending to this season, the way that it played out. I mean, the season ended with our backup kicker, who was only on the roster because our original backup kicker was kicked off the team for betting on his own team, steps in on a 20-degree day where he'd been sitting there doing nothing all day long except for freezing his butt off, and steps out there and makes a 38-yard kick. I mean, I didn't realize till afterwards just how ugly the kick was, and it probably wouldn't have made it from 40 yards. But, I mean, give that kid credit. I mean,
yeah.
Literally, I've been sitting there on the sideline for 3 hours straight doing nothing, and steps in and makes a 38-yard kick to win the game. And, I mean, that Nebraska game in general, Trent, the last 2 minutes especially, was kind of a microcosm of the season. Just absolute chaos, trying to find a way for it to fall apart, and the team just wouldn't let it happen. I mean, you have to give a huge amount of credit to the guys on the field, because, quite frankly, anybody that says the coaching staff helped win that game on Saturday wasn't watching. They tried to give that game away with a minute to go. The decision to call the timeout with 45 seconds to go, one of the stupidest coaching decisions of all time. And then you double down with an even dumber coaching decision of throwing a pass down the seam with a quarterback who's shown that's not a pass he can make regularly, and especially isn't going to make it in 3rd and 12 when they're sitting back and and it's basically waiting for it to happen. So, our coaching staff actively tried to lose that game, but give a huge amount of credit to the players, because from game one all year long, they've shown up every single game and just competed their asses off. And so, to win 10 games, given all the circumstances, is amazing. And as an Iowa fan, you got to celebrate it. It doesn't happen all that often, especially going forward with the new Big Ten. It's probably not going to happen more than, once a decade, win 10 games a year. And so enjoy it. And honestly, the last month of the season, I really kind of sat back and just enjoyed the chaos for what it is. It's been a crazy ride, but looking back at it, you got to enjoy it. So, give credit to this team. We'll talk about it. I don't think they have a chance in hell on Saturday, but for now, let's focus on the positives, which is an unbelievable 10-win season given the circumstances.
It really is. And, one of the reasons that I want to go to Indianapolis, and I don't think I'm alone here. You mentioned the kind of way it's been over this last month. And after the firing of Brian Ferentz and him maintaining his job, though, through the end of the season, we talked about this after Chicago. It almost felt like a cleansing for the fan base. Look, we don't have to bitch back and forth anymore about Brian Ferentz and should he, shouldn't he, those kind of things. That was lifted. And after that has been lifted, I think you've seen a fan base that has just been much more engaged, and even in the ugliness has embraced the ugliness and been happy. Yes, it's not going to be pretty, but just taking what this team is for what they are and celebrating what it is. And I think it's been really a great thing for just the fan base in general to have that, and you really see Hawkeye fans everywhere. Let's move past all the complaining, all the back and forth that we have, and just celebrate, which has been one of the most ridiculous seasons in Iowa football history.
Yeah, and I think it's really, people finally have realized, you look at Florida State, they lose just their quarterback, and they're a totally different team. We've lost clearly our 4 best players. There's pretty clear, I'm not sure you can even make an argument. Cade McNamara, Lachey, and Cooper are our 4 best players. Maybe you can make an argument for a Jay Higgins or something of that nature, given what he's done for this year. But, pretty clear argument those are our 4 best players. And to lose all of them and to still find a way to get it done is pretty amazing. And, we talk about it all the time, but it's another just absolute testament to Phil Parker and his amazingness. Last year, when Cooper went out mid-game, we were screwed. But this year, when Cooper got injured 5 days before, you give Phil Parker 5 days to figure it out. That defense didn't look any different the last 2 games than it did with Cooper. They were amazing. They've given up. I saw a stat. They given up 3 touchdowns in the last 6 games. That's absurd. And when you can do that, you're going to have a chance in any game. Is our chance against Michigan high? Absolutely not. I saw somewhere they have a 97% chance of making the playoff, which means we've probably got a 3% chance of winning. And that sounds about right. But, anytime you've got a defense like ours, if you've held teams to 3 touchdowns in 6 games, you've got a chance.
And that they do. Well, we will get into how good of a chance Iowa has in this one. What's it going to take to knock off the Wolverines? It is a tall task, and even taller with the injuries, as we've talked about. Iowa, what's it going to take to pull off the shocker of the world? We'll do that as we continue. This is the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Today's episode of Locked On Hawkeyes is brought to you by Prize Picks, and Prize Picks is your daily fantasy sports platform in North America. The easiest and most exciting way to play DFS is just you against the numbers, instead of having to worry about battling thousands of other players, pros, sharks, all the people with their analytics. No, you just pick more or less of a 2 to 6 player stat projection and watch the winnings roll in. With basketball season here, you can now pick combo projections across both football and basketball from the Specials League, a league created specifically for combo projections that include 2 or more players from different sports or leagues. For example, LeBron James plus Travis Kelce, 10.5 combination of 3.5 made and receptions. You just pick more or less of those numbers and away you go. Prize Picks is really simple to play. You can make your picks and cement the entry in less than 60 seconds. And quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and an enormous selection of players and stat types are what make Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege. That's where you want to go. It's prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege. And make sure you use code lockedoncollege for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy. Trent and Biz back with you once again here on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. Biz, 7 o'clock, well, probably what, 7:25 before kickoff actually happens in Indianapolis, which means out there 8 o'clock in the Eastern time zone. It'll be a late night. That means a full day of getting well lubricated for the game for me. And it is Michigan. You were there 2 years ago, a game where I would try the halfback pass to a fullback. Didn't work. Opportunities. That game got away in the fourth quarter, but what was it? 14-3. They hung around for a while. That was a team that had their own limitations offensively. The wheels really fell off in 2021 in the back half of the year on the offensive side of the football. But this Iowa team is different. And what would be the one glimmer of hope? If you had to point at one thing that gives you just that every once in a while, you know what, maybe, just maybe, what would it be?
The defense. I mean, our defense against they're and more simple, the running games. I mean, to me, this game comes down to running the football. Both teams badly want to run the ball. And we have shown over the last 6 weeks, we've take out the Illinois game. I mean, we've run the ball really well the last 6 games. And we've consistently ran the ball for over 100 yards. Going back to the Wisconsin game, from that point forward, we've been a pretty good running team. And Michigan's run defense is not it's good. I mean, everything about Michigan's good. But if they have a weakness on defense, it's run defense. And we talked about this going back to the Wisconsin game. And I think I said at the time, I'm fine with us running the ball every single play against Wisconsin going into that game. And that's basically what we did. I mean, we very rarely, especially the second half, that's all we did. And I'm fine with doing that again. I mean, I'm truly fine with us running the ball every play and punting. I mean, you go back 2 years ago, you talked about it was a 14-3 game, but I went back and looked, Trent. Michigan's first 8 possessions, they had 2 huge plays. They had the halfback pass for the touchdown, and they had a 75-yard run for a touchdown. Their other 6 drives were 0 points, and 4 of the 6 were 3 and outs. I mean, if we can do something similar to that again, where Jim Harbaugh is nothing if he's not stubborn. He is a stubborn guy, and he will continue to try to run on repeat. And I think you and I talked about it halfway through the year. I thought our run defense, especially against Penn State, I was like, but we're just not very good run defense. And boy, has that changed. I mean, our run defense has just been phenomenal the last month. And our best hope is to make it we run it, they run it. You make it a limited possession game where both teams only get the ball, 7 times in the game or whatever. And then you hope for some breaks. You hope to get lucky a couple of times. Maybe you run that trick play, or a similar trick play, and it works this time, or just create some turnovers. I mean, everything has to go perfect for us to win the game. I mean, there's a reason they're 97% likely to win the game. I mean, but that 3% is why we're going there, and it's why you're going there. So, let's be patient. Don't screw up. Punting truly is winning in this game. I mean, it's an indoor environment. Torrey Taylor should be able to punt for 50+ yards a punt in that type of environment, and just limit the big plays. And if they do what Penn State did, if they drive 15 plays and 75 yards, so be it. I mean, that we'll live with that. But you got to limit the big plays, and you got to make them just beat you with 4 or 5 yards at a time.
Got to get lucky.
The real key, Trent, honestly, is get off the field on 3rd down. I mean, you watch. I mean, Michigan is the king at getting to 3rd and 2 or 4th and 2. I mean, they will pound you and pound you and pound you, and they're confident enough to go for it in those 3rd and 4th down in short situations. You got to stop on 3rd down, whether it's 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3. You got to win those plays.
It would just be so much fun. I mean, not just the angle of Cade McNamara and Eric all playing against their own team, but if this just team had a full complement here. Think about it from the other perspective. If Michigan came into this game, Iowa was healthy, and JJ McCarthy wasn't available, and Blake Corum wasn't available, and Wilson wasn't available, and one of their top defenders wasn't available. I mean, the conversation would be just so different. And as we talked about at the top, taking those 4 players away from Iowa is just it's unthinkable. But put it in any perspective of any other team in college football, and you take away 4 players like that, Michigan all of a sudden looks pretty average, right? You take 4 players away like that. And it's so disappointing in a game like this with the national spotlight that yes, Iowa, if they would have got there with the full complement of players, the jokes would have been the same. It's not like this offense would have been averaging 35 points a game or anything like that. We know that. And it wouldn't be a different narrative, but there at least would be some hope going into this one. And you do feel bad because you know how important this would have been for McNamara and all to get a shot against Michigan.
Well, the ironic thing is, Trent, you know what the narrative would have been if all those, and you're right. I mean, if we had a full complement of players, it'd be a different discussion. But you know what the entire narrative would be this week? Can Brian Ferentz get 25 points? Because if we'd have been healthy, we probably would have averaged 20, somewhere around 25 points a game, somewhere in that ballpark. Right. We were doing that through, until McNamara got hurt, and we were in that area. So we'd probably be still. And if everybody's healthy, and we're 11-1 coming into this game, Brian Ferentz obviously doesn't get fired midseason. And the conversation is, can he get to that 25 points? I mean, that would be the narrative, because that was the narrative up until he got fired. I mean, there was obviously people doing weekly, the hill climber going over the cliff with the 25 points every week and the drive to 325. That's exactly what we'd be talking about right now is, where is the drive to 325? So, honestly, I in some ways I kind of enjoy this narrative better than I do that narrative, because, like you said, that narrative just got so damn old that I'm happy to be celebrating a 10-2 season and be looking at the positives rather than just be beating my head against the wall bitching about Brian all the time, because that would have been the narrative. I mean, it really would have been. People would be talking about that still and talking about, will he get fired? Won't he get fired? Should he get fired? All those things, and now we don't have to deal with that part. So, but in addition to the 4 players you mentioned, I mean, we're also, the good news is we're getting back, it sounds like, our center, our right tackle, and 2 wide receivers. I mean, that tells you just how crazy the injuries have been. I mean, all those guys sound like they're going to be back. And I mean, we need every man, every healthy person possible needs to be able to play. And, having Caleb Brown and Deontay Vines can only help, because I mean, our playmakers are limited, and at least with those 2, you've got some options to consider for, if you're going to run a trick play, if you're going to run a, some sort of a flea flicker or something, at least having some athletes on the field to run the play will help.
That helps. Yeah. And Caleb Brown, I mentioned this on the Monday podcast earlier this week, Biz. I saw the play. It was right before the drop touchdown. He got absolutely crushed by Ortworth on a crossing pattern, and sound like he was, dinged up. I don't think they've officially said a concussion, but you could see on that play, and, you can see why he dropped the ball, because Caleb Brown, if I was going to win this football game, I believe you're probably going to have a defensive score. I believe you're going to have to be at minimum +2, probably +3 in turnover margin. You have to dominate special teams, and Caleb Brown's probably going to have a huge performance. 8 catches, 100 yards, a touchdown, something like that, a couple of jet sweeps for 25, 30 yards. I mean, they're going to need that kind of performance. Somebody's got to step up in a big time way, and out of the passing game, likely the only guy that can do it against this Michigan team is probably Caleb Brown.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's clearly shown over the last month he is our best athlete or best weapon. Hopefully he is fully healthy. It sounds like he's practicing, and if it was, if he was in the concussion protocol, I would assume he wouldn't be practicing at all if he was still in it. So I would assume that means he's in the clear. But I mean, I don't know if we need to go +2 or +3 in turnover margin. We just can't be negative on the turnover margin, because I mean, Michigan, if we go into Michigan doesn't turn the ball over. They're just very sound with the football, but we just can't. We can't make mistakes. I mean, that's why, like I said, I mean, to me, I'm fine with running the ball, and just stay patient, and then get into the fourth quarter and see what happens. But we can't. What happened 2 years ago can't happen again. We can't give up the halfback pass. We can't give up the big run. We've got to keep them in front of us. And, it can't happen. Even what happened last week. I mean, defense was phenomenal except for the one play. I mean, those types of things just can't happen. And so, I mean, it's a tall task. I mean, like I said, we're basically asking them to play perfect, but that's what it's going to take.
That's where we are. We're going to make our pick for the game presented by Fan Duel when we come back. Also, our lock of the week, Biz, he hit his again. Last time we were together, I was on the losing side of it. We'll make our lock of the week and make our pick in the Iowa-Michigan game. We'll do that as we continue on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Today's episode of Locked On Hawkeyes is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to have as many top-tier candidates as possible to interview. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. As a small business owner, when you're looking to hire, I certainly understand this incredibly well. Finding those right candidates, incredibly important, and sifting through just the piles of resumes and different people that are interested, it can be a very difficult and tedious task. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. Hiring is easy when you have that many qualified candidates. So easy, in fact, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. They've even just launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions and make the process even easier and quicker. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Again, that's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Trent and Biz back with you one final time on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. As always, thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. All right, Biz, time for our lock of the week. There's been some interesting numbers that have also come out in the Iowa-Michigan game. I'm sure you saw that. First half numbers, over under a half point. That is out there at a book out there. It's crazy, and it would still be difficult for me to bet the over on either half.
Yeah, I've never seen that before. Where in advance the over under on anything is a half. In game you'll get that every once in a while,
sure.
But before the game, I guess to me there's two numbers I like. One, I saw Michigan is 16.5 over under the first half. I like the under in that a lot.
Yeah,
I just don't think Michigan's going to come out aggressive at all. I think they're going to Michigan's blueprint is going to be to copy what Penn State did against us, which is just bully us. I mean, they're not going to want to make mistakes. They're not going to want to take risks. I think they're just going to come out and say, we're better than you and we're going to bully you. And I think they'll do something similar to what Penn State did, and they'll probably score, 10-13 in the first half. So I really like the under at 16.5 Michigan in the first half. If I had to pick, I'd say the second half over 0.5, just because I could see us getting some garbage time points late. It might be, but that's, again, it's a sad state of affairs when your offense, when you get all you have to do is score a point and you don't feel confident about any of those bets. So, but lock of the week, Trent, I'm going to, this is kind of a homer pick, but as you know, my son goes to Boise State, but
yes,
Boise State lucked their way into the Mountain West Championship game. They're playing good football. They've rallied under their interim coach. UNLV has stumbled to the finish line. So give me Boise -2.5. I think they're going to kick the crap out of the Rebels. So.
Really? All right. Go into Vegas, right? That's in Vegas?
Yeah, they've played really, really good football the last month. With getting the insider info from my son, he told me a week before that there were multiple guys that strongly disliked the head coach. That he was, I don't know if you follow Boise football at all, but their best wide receiver just quit midway through the year. And a couple other guys were threatening to quit, and that's basically why they fired him. And since they fired him, they went back to they were doing a stupid 2-quarterback system, and they stopped that, and they brought in the athletic quarterback, and they basically become a run the ball down your throat team. I mean, they run the ball 90% of the time, and they do it well. So it's my lock of the week, which means I'm probably kiss of death. So give me Boise -2.5.
All right, my lock of the week, I'm going to go to the SEC championship game. A lot of eyes are going to be obviously on that one. 3:00 Central kickoff as Georgia takes on Alabama. We've seen this throughout the course of the season. When Georgia has their head screwed on straight, they're incredibly good. In fact, they might be impossible to beat. Alabama obviously will have their attention. Alabama survives a week ago against Auburn. Though the improvements for Alabama have been significant, I don't know if they're significant enough to compete with this Georgia team. We've seen Carson Beck take a big step forward as well. I just don't think Alabama can keep up with them. So I'm going to take Georgia. I'll lay the 5.5 and take the Bulldogs.
I think I made that same bet 2 years ago, Trent. And
that didn't go well.
Yeah, I think it was very similar. I think we made that same argument, same everything, and then Bama whooped him. So,
yeah. All right, we get into the big one. 23.5 is the number. I did find this one on Fan Duel that maybe I might throw a couple of bucks on. First half tie, 15-1. Can Iowa be 3-3, 7-7 at the half? Maybe. At 15-1, I'm going to dabble on that one, a little bonus play there, and throw a couple of bucks on that one. But as it pertains to the number, Biz, I just can't get there. I just cannot find a way where Iowa moves the football, puts anything up on the board enough to hang out. I think it's going to be a similar script to what we saw in the Penn State game late in the football game. And Michigan, as we saw in the championship game 2 years ago, they're not going to rest. With Harbaugh back on the sideline, this is going to be a team that is going to play for 4 quarters. And because of that, I'm going to lay it. Give me the Wolverines minus the 23 and a hook.
All right, I'll take the other side, Trent. I think, unlike 2 years ago, I think Michigan will rest. I think they will be very conservative in this game. I think they just want to get out of this with a W. I think 2 years ago, they were trying to send a message. They hadn't won a Big Ten title in however many years. I was there. It was a complete celebration. I mean, they were fired up to win a Big Ten title. This year, I think there's going to be some letdown a little bit from the Ohio State game. They might come out a little sluggish. I think we can fight with them, stay with them for, maybe, something like last time. I mean, it was 14-3 late in the third quarter last time. And then they put the pedal to the metal. And I don't think they'll do that this year. I really don't. I think it'll be a competitive game. I think they'll win relatively easily, but I think we can make it 24-3, 24-6, something like that, and cover. But with the caveat that I'm not actually betting this game. But,
okay.
So I don't in any way feel confident that we'll cover 23.5, but I see a world in which it happens. So I don't think Harbaugh will run it up this time. I think if they get up by 2 touchdowns or more, I think they'll get their starters the heck out of the game, and I think they'll just get take their W and move on. But I don't. Part of me, that's probably just my own hopefulness that we can keep it close. Yeah. But I don't know. Again, I go back to the fact that this defense has given up 3 touchdowns in 6 games. I mean, that's amazing. That's an amazing stat. And Michigan is not a juggernaut of an offense. Even against teams like UNLV and teams like that early in the year, they weren't putting up 60, 70 points this year. I mean, they're a very, very good offense, but they are a methodical offense. They're not, they're not Ohio State with just absurd 3-4 wide receivers. They're just going to beat you all over the field. They're going to pound it down our throats, and that's. I think we can, at least for a portion of the game, we can slow that down.
Let's hope. Let's hope that you're right and at least get a 4-quarter football game. That would be something I think to be celebrated, even with this Hawkeye team. Biz, in our final moment or two.
Having said that, we are due for a Deacon Hill 4 interception train wreck also. I mean, he's pretty loose at the football, and that's probably not a good sign. But my love for Deacon. I still
I do
until he has that 4th turnover game. I'm going to keep riding Deacon Hill, man. The guy, he's been dealt a difficult hand this year, and he's handled it really well. So.
All right, Biz, last minute or two here, and quick hoops thoughts from you over Thanksgiving. Iowa loses on the men's side to Oklahoma, bounces back at Seton Hall. They take on North Florida tonight. They should dominate in that one before next week with Purdue and Iowa State on tap. Michigan after that, a really important week. And the women's side, avenge their loss against Kansas State down in Florida.
Yeah, you and I are on a text chain with a group of friends, and we have multiple friends that really dislike the Iowa men's basketball team this year. I'm on the opposite side. I like this team. I
didn't like them against
season
Oklahoma.
with low expectations. I still think they've got some flaws, but they play hard. I mean, honestly, defensively, this is probably one of Fran's better teams in the last. I mean, the young guys especially, they at least put in an effort on defense, and I think Cricky's a pretty good defensive player, and I don't know. I mean, they are what they are. They're not going to win the Big Ten. They're probably not going to make the NCAA tournament, but I think they're going to be competitive all year long, and I think they'll surprise some teams. And I don't know. If you came into this season expecting 20-plus wins, then you're not going to like this team. But if you came into it and you look at it, I mean, I talked about before, I just think every guy on this team has a role, and I think the young guys especially have some talent. I mean, I just look at this and I'm like, hey, this team, they can keep everybody together and, not have people enter the transfer portal. I don't know, late this year, early next year, this team's got some talent. They can be a good team down the road.
And the good thing is also the Big Ten stinks this year. After Purdue, this conference is going to be bad, and there might be a real opportunity for this team to pile up 11, maybe 12 wins in the conference and at minimum get to a tournament. But that's a long way ahead. Biz, we will talk to you next week. Best of luck to the girls here in the capital city, and we'll talk to you next week.
All right, go Hawks.